Hi everyone, welcome to Casual Watch Talk, the Tuesday show that sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't. But I'm very kindly joined by Pete Conville.
Hey.
Hey, well, there's only the two of us, Pete, so you might as well kick off the watch
The
check.
wristwatch check.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am wearing my. Can I get that to focus? Alpina Alpina 4 Extreme. This is, there you go, yet another entry into the Blue Dial stainless steel sports watch, integrated bracelet sports watch. This is almost converting me to bracelets.
Oh,
I'm beginning to see the point of a bracelet as long as A, it's an actual integrated bracelet, and B, it's got to give you the kind of the same flexibility as something properly comfortable like a NATO. So this thing, the links are so small, you can actually fold it over. There you go. It's so small, it's not even going to focus. But it can basically fold completely flat and can sit on your wrist really ribbon-like. So it's like not wearing a bracelet.
yeah. There's an Uncle. It doesn't look anything like that, but the Uncle Seiko razor wire bracelet is super comfortable. You can even sort of almost turn it inside out on itself. There's so much articulation to it. But yeah, I'm wearing. Sorry, everyone. I've still got a cold, so I didn't mean. I coughed out the microphone, and I apologize. But I'm still wearing my little 1969 Grand Seiko. I don't know why I keep wearing it. It's just something about it makes me smile. I think it's because I'm amazed that a watch made in 1969 ticks like 10 times a second. And if you listen to it, it's really, really going for it, and it's keeping better time than any modern Seiko. Well, with the exception of the quartz ones.
Yeah.
Like 1 second a day slow. I don't understand. I don't understand it.
I think what it shows is we figured out how to make a watch that is reliable and is accurate to about a second a day in 1960s, in the 1960s. And in a sense, it's like everyone just moved on. I was having a question on my YouTube channel. Someone was asking about, in the past, why were watches so small? And one of the things, I started doing some research, and one of the things that came up was because during the 20s and 30s and 40s, the competition was to make watches really, really small. That was how watch companies showed off. And so the consumers just got kind of taken along for the ride, whether you wanted a bigger watch or a smaller watch. But then people got to the point where they couldn't make them any smaller. So you know what, we'll just take a deep breath, realize it doesn't matter anymore, and we'll start making more normal sized watches. I wonder if it's something similar with accuracy. It's like there used to be competitions to make mechanical watches really accurate, but then people realized it kind of doesn't matter.
It's a good point, isn't it? Because exactly. Seiko make a watch in 1969. They're like, well, this is going to stay accurate for the next 50 years. We're going to be out of business.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's a case of, what we found was no one cared. It's not like your day is changed because tomorrow your watch is 4 seconds slow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a question I tried to run on my channel the other day. How slow would your watch have to be for it to actually have a real world impact on you? That you would start turning up late for meetings, and here's a question, that other people would notice something had changed. And it works out to about 5 minutes a day.
Yeah, there's a totally. I don't know if you're on the old TikTok, but there's a viral TikTok that's going on at the moment, and it started off quite genuine, and it's I guess she's in her early 20s. It's a girl, and she's talking about how she's going to university, and she rang the university to ask whether they had accommodations for people that suffer from time blindness. I don't know if you've heard this.
No.
And so her argument is that she believes she has this she suffers from time blindness where she can't be on time. Like she doesn't time isn't the same construct in people that suffer from time blindness. And unfortunately, as you expect, she's been just mercilessly mocked online. But it's kind of similar to that, isn't it? It's whether because you've got so many things beeping off and all sorts, haven't you, to kind of keep you on time. But there's a lot of, as well as people unfortunately mocking her, there's been a lot of people doing genuine responses and saying, well, the whole structure of time it's so pivotal to everything we do. Like, being late in any culture is seen as a, is seen as a negative, isn't it? Or that you don't care. So to then try and spin it into something else is, so if it's like something that needs an accommodation that needs to be made is perhaps a stretch too far. Well, guys, keep the questions coming, please. So Pete and I will do a Q&A. We've got a couple of stories coming up here. Well, Pete, first off, while we're waiting for questions to come in, and Al, thank you very much for joining. Al, if you want to join, just let me know on the WhatsApp. You're welcome to join. Bill, thank you for joining. Peter, thank you for joining. Oh, Bruno's actually he's coming in with a question here. Single hand watch with a solid case back, Meistersinger, for example, would you go quartz or mechanical? So Meistersinger mechanicals are made by Christopher Ward. Or I think Christopher Ward make 85% of them. So I don't know if you ever owned a single-handed.
No, I keep meaning to. I've watched a couple of times, and that's actually a really good, interesting question, because there is a single-handed watch made by a different company whose name I cannot remember at the moment, Uno or something. It's a Swiss-Italian company.
Okay.
And their version of a single-handed is not only single-handed, but it's single-handed and 24 hours. And I was thinking of buying that, and it was a quartz watch. So I think the reason why I was thinking of buying that one quartz is because if I bought a 24-hour single-handed watch, that's the one, a 24-hour single-handed watch, time is at best approximate. So it would probably be something I wanted to play with and therefore not overinvest in, and quartz made it a little cheaper. So that was really where I was coming from there.
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of fun watches, and I think it gets fun. Like when there was one of the companies, I think these guys might be the one, where they kind of spin the watch around so that the 0 and the 24 is at the 9 o'clock position. Which has an interesting effect of at 12 o'clock when the sun is up, the hand will be vertical, and at 12 o'clock at night when you're at midnight, the hand will be also vertical down.
Yeah.
So it kind of, and so you get a real day-night kind of function. They're fun. I'd kind of enjoy one, and because I wouldn't want to overinvest in it, it is a bit of a fun toy watch. I'd probably go quartz for that.
Yeah, so this one appears to be mechanical, but well, they've got a wall clock, so they definitely have some that are like. I wonder if this is their quartz version of it, or perhaps not. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Meistersinger, they're obviously the most famous one, and that Bell Aura, if anybody's not familiar, this is actually the watch that the Bell Aura is the watch that the Bel Canto is based on, the mechanism for it. So the similar mechanism to the Bell Aura is actually in the Bel Canto from Christopher Ward. It's just that they moved all of the interesting components onto the front of the watch. So they can see it. There's a little bit of a fact. I don't know. They've never really appealed to me, single-handed watches, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I think they're a quirky little thing. It's kind of like we were talking about before. It changes your notion of time. It sort of says that time is becoming increasingly approximate when you go to a single-handed watch.
Yep.
It's kind of most people, you can kind of get to within 4 or 5 minutes pretty easily at a glance with a single-handed watch. So if you're happy with that, then you could flip it around the other way and say you could just put a really pretty cruddy, not particularly well regulated NH35 into it, and you wouldn't notice.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, the 6139 speed timer that I've got, it's a vintage watch with the old 6139 Seiko movement in it. And I thought it would bother me being vintage, like I thought this would, because I'm like, oh, it's going to lose a load of time. But it doesn't have a continuous second hand. It only has a minute, because the second hand is the chronograph hand. So yeah, it's quite interesting that it doesn't bother me that much. I'm actually quite comfortable with it. Like, if I don't know, it's ignorance is bliss kind of thing. But yeah.
Sorry, I was talking to Clayton from the Watchdog podcast a little while ago, and in an interesting little byplay, he won't buy 6R Seikos anymore as a very similar reason to you, because of the lack of timing and regulation and everything. But he has just bought himself a white gold funky blue center seconds Moser, and that Moser has no markings at all. In fact, it might not be the center seconds. It might not even have a second hand, but it has no indices at all. So it's impossible to really know what the time is. And so the paradox of this is he's not particularly happy buying $1,000 watch because it's only regulated to like plus or minus 15 to 20 or whatever it is. But he's happy spending $20,000 on a watch where he doesn't really know what the time is at all.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm exactly the same. I won't buy like 4R35s or 6R, and there's some that I really like the look of. There's a new Seiko that I just love the look of, but I know it will irritate me, and I think it's because it almost seems like it seems like well, we made a nice case, but the movement is an afterthought. It seems like Seiko aren't putting a lot of. They're improving the case, the fit and finish of it, but they're just putting basically a $30 movement in the same thing. It's just, I think it's the principle of the thing. Maybe it's being British and we're very principled about things, but it's like the principle of the thing for me. I'm like, well, why don't you just make like a nice one?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think Seiko would also say they're taking a principled position, but you hold different principles. Like I know I've heard you say a number of times, what you really, really want is that spring drive in a cheaper case. And Seiko would say that is an absolutely disgusting thought, and we are never doing it. And what is wrong with you, you immoral little man?
Exactly. Like put your money out. Kill the moths in your wallet and pull your money out.
No, I don't think it's about killing the moths. I think they would say putting that watch in a case that wasn't up to the standard is wrong. Is a bad thing to do. They're saying that, and their principles are that the case and the dial lead the movement, not the other way around. And if you look across the entire Seiko community, every single watch they make follows that principle. The case and the dial lead the movement. The movement is only ever just good enough to keep up with the case and the dial.
Yeah, excellent. Cool. Well, I'm just going to send the link to somebody else who's going to join us. So whilst Al's joining us at Cherish Watch Time, let's quickly go to. We've got another question. So, hi Kevin, thanks for joining us. Yeah, I'm in Orlando and it's been hammering it down all day with rain. We're in that season where it's extremely violent thunderstorms every single day. Which is interesting. So RR asked, our view on the Tag Heuer Skipper. We actually covered this quite a bit on the Sunday show, but I know you changed my mind on it because I was a bit like, oh, not sure about the price, and then you kind of changed my mind on it a bit. But I suppose, Pete, what was your?
I love it. More generally, I'll repeat what I said on the Sunday show. I think Tag is one of the most exciting and interesting watch brands at the moment. And I think with the glass box, with that previous version of the Carrera that they launched just recently, they, for the first time in 30 or 40 years, have successfully fused the Tag and Heuer kind of identities. And I think the Skipper is a brilliant example of that. Personally, I would have, and I know this is heresy to you, Sam. Personally, I think it could have done without the date, or the date should have moved to 4:30, because where the date is at the moment messes with the one of the sub dials. But no, I love that watch. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, let's just let me just get that picture of it up so we know what we're talking about. Is it this one? Yeah, this was it, wasn't it? This was the one from, giving it another plug to Hodinkee, even though we like to tease them. But yeah, this was the word, wasn't it? Actually they've got the actual Skipper, and then I think, was this a modern one they did Reese?
Yeah, that was a Hodinkee collab.
Yeah.
So that was their collab.
Okay, and it messes with the small seconds you're saying on the date here.
Yeah. So if you get down to there, it just cuts a great chunk out of the small seconds.
Oh yeah, I mean, I quite like the look of that, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's yeah, I actually quite like it. It's growing on me. I guess.
And that's my unpopular opinion. The correct position for a date is 4:30 to solve that exact problem.
Well, yeah. I don't. I just, as long as the date's on there, I'm happy. Let me just check that. Okay, let me just check that I got the right link for Al there. So, Al, I'm going to reply back. If you're watching, I'm replying back to you in WhatsApp. Okay, so then, oh, here we go. Yeah, I'll just wait for him to come on. So let's just remove this for a second. WhatsApp. Al, hi.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. How's it going?
Good. Al, have you met Pete before? Pete?
No, I think I have. Oh, hey, Pete. Good to see you again. I think we spoke a long time ago, so it's good to be back.
Oh, okay.
Awesome. Well, Al, thanks for joining us. We're just answering some questions from the on the audience here. So, have you seen the new tag Skipper? What did you think?
I have not seen it as of yet.
So this is this new one on the far right hand side here. This is the original is on the left. The Hodinkee collab that they did about a year ago is in the middle, and then this is the new tag one. So the original Skippers are collector's items now. They're very rare, but then they've redone this at the sort of like yachting timers.
I kind of like that. What is that? What is that coming in at? What's the price on that?
7,000. I think they're around 7,000 US.
That's quite a bit.
6,700.
Oh wow.
Yeah, what do you think of tag, Al? We're just
I've never had one, and I don't want to say anything negative because I know there's a lot of people out there that love tag, but I always thought my neighbor has one, and it always just seemed less than. So I wasn't, I haven't been a big fan of tag. So I'd be interested to see what this looks like in person. But for me, again, and I'm a big Christopher Ward fanboy. I mean, there's a Christopher Ward that looks exactly like that I would jump on before I purchased a tag.
Yeah, good point. Okay, let's. Next question is, hello, what color material of the Christopher Ward 12 appeals to you the most people around you? Will you be getting this over the Bel Canto? I reviewed the blue dial, the ice blue dial, stainless steel. I wasn't crazy about the dial. I felt like it, for my personal taste, I might have gone for a darker dial, but I don't know. Pete, what did?
I'm tricky because I don't particularly like the 12. I think that it was. I think they've gone too far and done too much and made it too busy. I mean, I've joked before that Christopher Ward will give you more of everything than anyone else except restraint. And yeah, so I can't pick one that I like. I can pick the ones I like that I dislike the least, which would probably be the titanium ones. But then I don't like they went overboard with the fume. Although I've heard that it's better in real life than it is in pictures.
Yeah.
So there's no. It's interesting. When confronted with the possibility of buying the 12, I bought the more expensive but simpler Alpina instead.
Oh, okay.
So,
what do you think? What did you see the 12 in person in the end?
I haven't seen it in person, but I've been looking at the Christopher Wood Enthusiast Forum quite a bit. I do like the blue, so
yeah.
But I've never been a fan of titanium. For whatever reason. For example, I have the Sea Dweller on today, so I like to have a little bit of heft to a watch. I've had titanium in the past, but I need to feel the watch. I need to know it's there. That's just me personally.
Yeah. They've done if you are considering it and you like the look of it, Renzo, I think it's a really well made. It's just a really well made watch. If you like the look of it, I think it's a great deal. I did a review of it, so check it out on the channel. Watch Chris did a review of it and compared it against the PRX as well. So check that out. Okay, so let's have a look here. We've got some more questions coming in. Bobby's asking, what's the best watch model release of 2023 so far?
Huh. Interesting.
This is impossible to answer without thinking because I'm going to suffer from recency bias and just say, whatever comes to me that was released most recently, and some poor watch that got released back in January will just get, lost. Part of me is thinking that those glass box tags, I think those are amongst some of the best releases this year.
So this is this one.
Yeah.
And are they called the glass box because of the domes? Is that why?
Yeah.
Like a heavily domed?
So if you look at it like that, gives you a better idea about it. What they do is the dial. They've kind of removed the tachometer, the separate tachometer scale. It's now built into the dial. The dial kind of loops up, and then the crystal creates a box over that one piece dial, and it just gives it a really funky feel. It doesn't really come across particularly well in the renders. Do it no justice at all. Photos look better, and then in real life, it's better again.
Yeah. Okay. When I immediately think of this, I know this is awful, but I still think that titanium Yachtmaster was really cool. I see it absolutely. Yeah, there's just something about that I just think that seemed to really, Watches and Wonders. That's the one that immediately I was drawn to. I was like, wow, that's something pretty cool. Even though it's a titanium Yachtmaster. It doesn't look that dissimilar from the previous Yachtmaster, but there was something that I quite liked about it, and I still think about. That's the one watch I still think about that was released this year.
Interesting.
But what do you think?
Rolex. Sorry, go on.
No, that's fine. I'm never on and off with Tudor. I've never been a big fan, but I did like. We have a mutual friend that had the FXD. They came out with the Chrono this year, and now that kind of hit me like, wow, I could possibly own that. That just kind of stood out.
Okay, well, Pete, I'll leave the floor to you on that one. You weren't feeling this, were you? This one?
I don't hate this watch. I just don't really like it very much. The snowflake hand on. I'm not a diehard on the functionality must be absolutely perfect. I get that these are fundamentally fashion watches, but that big snowflake, that means for half the time, one of your registers is effectively unusable, really irritates me. And I'm unsure about the long-term viability of carbon cases. Carbon as a material for a watch case, I have a suspicion that at the moment, if I gave you a plastic watch and a carbon cased watch, you would take the carbon every day and you would pay more for it.
Right.
But I also think that in 5 years' time, the carbon case will be an absolute mess and the plastic case will be absolutely perfectly fine.
Interesting.
So that's the material. You think scratching, or you think that the way the material's bonded will?
It's just the way the material bonds. I think in the long run, you are going to get small. You could, and that's why I said this is early days. We haven't figured out what this is going to look like. But if you look at some of the early carbon watches now, like the early APs that came out, you can see there are debonds and lamination starting to occur. You can see bits of the carbon fiber weave beginning to show through the edges of the case. You know, the cases kind of look like they've got dandruff. I'm not convinced that carbon is a sensible watch material. I think plastic is better.
Because we've gone all in, haven't we, on the carbon? I mean, Christopher Ward's got a carbon, obviously. Tudor, Tissot just released their forged carbon. I've actually got a watch for review that's not released yet that's got a carbon dial.
Oh wow!
Well, that would make more sense because that's protected. And you know what? 5-10 years from now, maybe I'm proven wrong, and maybe we've found that the tech is sufficiently mature that you don't get those problems anymore. But I don't mind this watch. It's actually, I'm not a Tudor guy. Tudor for me is just too much of a Rolex homage and it's too backwards looking. Mm-hmm. But this and the North Flag and the old Pelagos, those are the watches that if only Tudor embraced that, maybe I could get into them. So if they keep following this line, if they take the FXD further away, although they've got that hand still, if they took it further away from the Black Bay and they started making, God forbid, an original watch out of it, I'd be getting more and more interested in the brand.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I've never been a big fan, but I did see this live and it did make me stop and think for a moment. And it was the only Tudor that I've had in my hand that made me think that. Yeah. So, and it did feel it. As Chris said, it was the weight of it was surreal. It was like this is crazy, but I kind of dug it. I definitely did. Not to say that I'm going to get it because I have my sights set on other things, but if I had to buy a Tudor, not that we have to buy anything, but it would definitely be on this one.
Yeah, and does it bother you about the few people have kind of rubbed up the wrong way about the Red Bull branding on it? Does that bother you at all?
Yeah, not at all. Because I've become a strap monster person, and I have a drawer full of straps that I never used. And I recently bought some stuff on from Christopher Ward that with the sale, and I got some straps. And I'm realizing now it changes the whole dynamic. So if you put like a nice thick, rubber or a black NATO on that, it would just change the whole dynamic.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it looks like Bobby actually answered his own question here. Sorry, he didn't. That's another question. Sorry, Bobby. He answered his question saying that he thinks it's the Chopard LUC Alpine Eagle. So let me just pull that up because just have a look here. A Chopard Alpine Eagle. Let's have a look. So I think this is the one that let me just show. I believe this is the one. But Bobby, you're looking at. Let me just go the Alpine Eagle. This one, I believe. I don't know if anyone follows the time teller, but he's been losing his mind about this watch, and essentially because I don't know if this is probably not suitable for work, but he thinks that the dial looks like basically, I'll just say it, he thinks it looks like a bum hole. So,
oh my goodness.
It is. I mean, it is not just once or twice that he's mentioned this. He made a whole video on it and all sorts. So, I'm not totally sure, but I think there's something about the way the dial is textured that makes him feel quite uneasy. So,
No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
so anyway,
I mean, it's a nice watch, but if I had unlimited funds and I could get whatever I wanted, I would jump from the Tudor, like I said, and I would love to get that new Rolex Daytona 24-hour Le Mans. Oh, that for me is like, all right, how many watches do I need to give up to get that watch? I fell in love with that watch.
I mean, it's not limited edition, is it? But I'm sure it's limited production.
I spoke to my AD, and they had said that it's going to be a long time before they even get one of them in. But I just saw it, and I think I'm trying to think. Maybe Watch Eric had profiled it, and I was like, oh man, I need that watch. I need that watch. That watch is just insane. If you had that and a Panda Daytona and maybe a blue Sky Dweller, what else would you need? I don't know. I don't know. That would be the trifecta.
Pete would say an imagination or something.
Yeah, basically, yes.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. We all have different tastes.
A sense of personal style.
You know I'm a Rolex fan as well. So.
I know.
Okay, so next question. Okay, so what watch brand do you think took a step forward in 2023 and a watch brand that took a step back? Oh, Bobby, you're coming in with another good question.
Oh my goodness.
What watch took a step forward
back
and then a watch that took a step back? Wow.
There's a couple. I think Tudor has taken a step forward this year. I think Tag has taken a step forward this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tissot as well. I think.
I think Tissot's definitely taking a step forward. I think Longines is taking a step forward.
Good one.
What?
Everyone else is kind of just moving sideways, sticking where they are. And actually, this is an interesting one. This is a brand that I think the brand thinks they're taking a huge step forward, but I'm not sure that we've gone along on the ride with them, which is IWC. I think with things like the pricing of the Ingenieur, IWC have picked up their flag, walked past Rolex, and now placed their flag in the next rung up. And I'm not sure if people have followed them.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, isn't it? Yeah, that it's because is staying the same, taking a step back in the world. Because we talked, didn't we, like a couple of live streams ago about was this year the year to take a chance? And I think we decided that a few people have sort of taken a chance, but maybe it was like a hangover from COVID that they were playing it safe for a few years. But yeah, I can't think of one that's taken a step back. I'm sure it'll come to us, won't it?
I suppose I'm thinking it through the lens of what's a brand that I might have thought about buying but kind of won't anymore. And I can't think of any, like all the brands that were in my I'm not likely to buy this I'm not likely to buy this are kind of still there. So, but no one new has joined that little circle.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, good point.
Well, I'm not a fan of those plastic Omegas, so I know somebody's gonna find me.
Fan of those.
Oh, yeah, somebody's gonna find me and kick my ass. I just don't want to spend. It's a plastic toy. Why not just wear a Lego? That for me, I understand what they were trying to do, but I just can't get behind that.
So you think Swatch itself took a step back this year on the Moon Swatch?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
that's
actually one of the things. At the risk of like amateur psychology, I think a Christopher Ward fan is the kind of person who's going to really hate the Moon Swatch.
Interesting.
Because Christopher Ward, its whole identity and what it tries to sell is value for money. It's all about what specs I give you. It's all about how well it's finished. It's all about how good the materials are and how little you have to pay. And that whole 3 by cost model, we figure out what a watch costs to make, regardless of whether it's super popular or not. And then we just multiply by 3. That's what it's going to cost you. And that model, that mindset kind of doesn't put a value on, this is not particularly well made, but it is as cool as shit. And the Moon Swatch comes from a completely different place. The Moon Swatch is saying it's not particularly well made. It's not particularly long lasting. The specs aren't great. The value is not brilliant, but no one else makes a watch as cool as this. This watch is just cool and fun, and no other watch makes you smile that way.
I don't know. May I ask? I'm sorry to interrupt. Is it because it has the Omega logo on it? What makes it?
No, it's just everything about it.
Really?
Yep. And it's fascinating looking at the boring, dull, mundane watches that people put up as alternatives. They say, why would you buy this really cool thing that everyone's really excited about when you could buy an Orient? It's like, because Orients are deathly dull and boring. That's why.
Yeah, an AliExpress or something. Yeah.
Actually, Pete, this underachieving watch collector has answered this, and it's close to your heart. He said JLC went backwards for me after the 40% price increase.
Yeah,
so what do you think?
That's kind of what I was thinking about with IWC. But you're underachieving is exactly right. There's similar discussions going on with JLC at the moment, with people saying they're kind of they're a lesser brand in their minds because they're charging more for their watches. So that's an interesting. I think Theo and Harris did a video on this exact topic.
Right.
I think so, yeah. I love what Peter wrote. Does the Moon Swatch qualify as space junk?
A space junk, yeah. It's quite funny. And John's actually asking a question here, and then Bobby's got another one, which I'll read out as well. But John says, does anyone know why Christopher Ward doesn't make quartz watches anymore? Is it part of going up market? The last one they did was a split second quartz. They put a very interesting quartz movement in. I think I would like to see them do more quartz, but just to set the scene. But I think they're trying to push the envelope, aren't they, with design? And I think they've got a really good relationship with Sellita, I'm guessing, as well. So maybe it's just
I think demand. So. I think it might also screw with their costings.
Right.
So. What I mean by that is, given the way they cost with their 3 by model, the quartz modules would be so much cheaper that you would end up with really big breaks in their cost schedule. You would end up with watches that were, within a family, you'd have one that was $2,000, one that was $1,500, one that was $900. There's these really big gaps would open up.
Interesting.
So I think it might be tricky for them unless they went the other way and said, okay, so we are going to do quartz, but it's going to be like high accuracy or some sort. It's going to have perpetual calendars built into it or something special, which would then smooth the costings out.
They did. I'm sure the last one they did was a limited edition, maybe a split second. Chrono or something. It was quite the watch from memory, and I've often tried to actually find one on eBay. I'll fish around for it too much here, but yeah, they have the last one they did. To your point, Pete, was a highly complicated quartz watch. So okay, so yeah, hopefully, John, we didn't really answer your question there, but we appreciate it. Bobby's asked another question, which is, if you had to collect one brand from now on, which brand would it be? Caveat, all the watches you collect cannot be resold, so you really have to like the watches and not the resale value. That's an interesting question.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been jumping in, so someone else jump in first.
No. Well, I'm I don't know. I have two levels of spectrum. So I got the Christopher Wards and the Rolexes, and for me, it would be Rolex all day long. I just I love my Redline, Sea Dweller. I'm fortunate to have a few. No matter what you pay for them, I just think value for money, and you could hand them down and hand them down and hand them down and hand them down. They'll be around forever. They'll outlast generations. I don't think you could put a price on that for me, particularly.
Yeah, I a little bit like you. I suppose I could split it depending on how much money I had. I have kind of two brands. Alpina would be my sort of cheap
Good
one,
brand.
or Breitling.
I love Breitling.
They got everything.
They do.
So yeah, they've pretty much got you covered no matter what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting as well, because Pete, you've got quite the mix, haven't you, including JLC and things like that. Yeah, this is a hard question. I might, if I had to keep them forever and I couldn't sell them, I don't know. It would probably. I mean, I really like my Rolex and I really like my Seikos, so it's like, would it be Seiko or would it be Rolex? I mean, I suppose Seiko's got more breadth in its catalog, but am I a bit of a? Do I like the prestige of Rolex more than like Grand Seiko? It's a really interesting question. I don't know. I guess in corners with my channel, I'd probably go Seiko, because at least you've got Grand Seiko and Creedor.
And think of it this way. Imagine, don't think of it as in tomorrow you've taken this sort of challenge. Think of it 10 years from now. You go and you've got your watch box and you open it up and let's just say you went Rolex. It's going to look like you've got one watch, just 20 different versions of it.
I don't know if that's true.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that? Someone did a picture. I was trying to find it for a video I was doing recently. Someone did a picture where they took the entire Rolex catalog other than the Cellini, because it was done pre-1908. Is it 1908? Whatever their new Calatrava is. What they did is they took the entire Rolex catalog and then just put a black disc over the bezel and dial, and then messed with everything so it was the same size, and then ran a competition. Pick the watch. Tell me what it is. And no one passes the test.
Really? I don't know. Listen, you could have a diver, you could have a chronograph, you could have a date.
But it's all basically the same case. Block the bezel and the dial, and you can't tell the difference between them.
I'm not.
I don't see it. You could do the same thing with Seiko. I loved Seiko when I first started out. Every Seiko monster they've ever made, Generation 1, Generation 2, Generation 3. I mean, I still have them.
But then you've got the Tuna and the Samurai and the
had them all, but they're all different
to each other. If you open up a box and you've got a Marine Master next to a Tuna, next to a Samurai, next to a Sumo, they are different watches. They could come from different companies.
Yeah.
I could see it. I've had them all. But I wasn't a fan of the Marine Master. I wore it. It was so top heavy. I kept the Monsters in my Spatora, but the Marine Master, and it went through the roof. It just seemed so top heavy, and the bracelet just didn't do anything. So when you compare it to, a Redline Sea Dweller, it's night and day. I know the prices are far afield, but just a different watch.
Yeah, I suppose if you picked Rolex as well, you'd have to, and it was your only one, you'd have to realize that you were essentially. For me, I wouldn't be able, it would be once every 3 to 4 years that I would be getting a new watch. It wouldn't be like I'd be constantly having new watches all the time. And I do like, part of the fun for me is like buying them, experiencing them, then selling them on. Like that's actually part of the collection fun for me. So I wonder whether that would kill it for me totally. If I was like, would I just procrastinate too much about the next watch if I knew I couldn't sell it? It's kind of like commitment issues.
Well, I know you've rubbed off on me with the Seikos when you showed me where you got the recent GMTs and stuff, and I got them, and the Speed Masters I got them in, and but they didn't stay. They went right back out. They didn't stay.
Maybe this is why this is easy. I don't sell watches. So I already collect this way. And for me, a lot of how I choose a watch is I open up my watch box and I look at the collection and say, what would add to this? What would bring something I don't already have? And that's why I look at something like a Rolex and I go, if I had a box full of Rolexes, what would a new one bring?
I think it would look shiny though, wouldn't it?
But it's just another one of what you've already got.
I don't know, but you get with the schedule, you have a master calendar. I went from when I first got into Rolexes, I went from probably a collection, and dare I say 300. I had so many watches, and again, from Invicta all the way up, down to probably 40, 45, and I'm comfortable there. I mean, there were watches that I wouldn't get to before the battery died, in my collection. I'm like, oh, I got to change the battery before I put this on. So
yeah, I can't when the watch box, I'm looking at my watch box now and it's too full for me. I don't know what it is. Because I think once I get a new watch, I like wear it forever. And then and I think I'm totally different from you, Pete, because in my mind, I'm always going for like the one watch. Like, what is the one watch?
When is the
and
watch?
So every watch that I look for is like the one watch. It isn't like, oh, this watch would be great for this occasion. This is like, oh, could I wear this watch like all the time? I've got like a weird.
I never ask that question.
Really?
In fact, I'll go further. A watch I could wear all the time is not a watch I want to own.
That's a good point, yeah, because
Wow.
arguably
that's like, as a photographer, okay, that's like saying what I want is the super zoom, the 20 to 800 zoom that will always be okay, but will never get me the best photos, will never get me that I can't use in the most extreme circumstances. It's the adjustable wrench, it's the super zoom lens, it's good enough watch.
Yeah,
I think every collection needs one, because it fills that gap for when you don't generally have anything else. It's kind of like, I'm going to use a cricket analogy. Okay, so I'm talking to a lot of Americans, so you won't understand.
Okay.
But okay, cricket team has 11 players on it. About half of them bat and about half of them are specialist bowlers. But there's always one guy who's a bit of an all-rounder. He can bat and he can bowl. He's never great at either of them, but he can swing either way if he has to. Most teams will pretty much always take an all-rounder because they can cover those gaps when something's gone wrong. That is your Garda watch. If you've got 10 to 11 watches, I understand having one that is okay at pretty much everything, but not great at anything. But why would you have a team of all-rounders?
That's actually not a bad point, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. I think maybe when you start off in collecting, because I don't think I've got any watch that when I started collecting that I still own today. In those first couple of years of collecting, I don't think any, except for the ones I inherited, which will never move. But I don't think I've kept any. But yeah, that's it. Really interesting point. So Bobby's actually, I don't know if this is a question, but Bobby came back. He says, if people get riled up with the bubbles puzzle and red 100 on the back of the Daytona Le Mans, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that people just want the crown and not their design language.
Well, I'll jump in on that because I said I love the watch. What I did love about the Black Dial Daytona is that it had the red lettering, which I find very something about it. Even the red line Sea Dweller. So that it wasn't per se anything they changed, just that the dial had changed, and it was just something a little different from the norm, and that's what brought me in on that. So it wasn't the puzzles or the bubbles, or it was just the overall aesthetics of the watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're different problems, if you like. I think the reason why a lot of people got riled up about the bubbles and the puzzles is because for so long people have been saying, particularly Rolex fans, have been saying certain things about Rolex. This is who Rolex is, and this is what Rolex does, and this is why we love Rolex. And then Rolex themselves went out and did something quite different to that.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And so there was like, who are you and what are you doing and why are you leaving me? But Rolex brought out a whole bunch of other stuff like that solid gold GMT, which is like core Rolex and really, a great one for the fans. Yeah. But I think that's why a lot of people got upset. If you looked at particularly the emoji watch, a lot of the attacks on the emoji watch were not on the watch, but on the kind of person that those people thought would buy the emoji watch.
Interesting. Yeah. So, okay, we've got a couple of questions coming up here. So, Peter asked if we could have one watch forever, which would it choose? I suppose that leads into the single watch brand as well. I don't know, I don't know what you would choose if you had one watch forever.
I played this game recently with if you had to sell every watch you owned, but you could keep one and never buy another one, what would that be? I can answer that one, I think. But for me, that would be my JLC Polaris. I think that would be if I had to go to the one watch, having just said that I think one watch is ridiculous. That's the one I'd pick.
Right. What would you do, Sam?
So yeah, sorry, I've got my grandfather's ones. So I don't know whether what would I do? But they're not good watch. They're not. Sorry, they're sentimentally good. But one's like a very old Timex. One's a very old Casio LCD. So how would you? I wouldn't want that watch forever. I mean, it's got sentimental value to me, but I wouldn't wear it forever.
But leaving those out, and leaving Grandpa's watches out, what would it be?
Well, I think it'd have to be my date just if I had to sell everything and then keep. Although, would it though? Would it be the date just?
It's so hard.
It is very hard, isn't it? Because the date just is. If anything ever happened, if you found yourself in a bit of financial trouble, I suppose that then you would have, you could sell the date just for a little bit of change. So maybe that's a good reason to have it as the one watch, but also, I don't know. What about you, Al? If you had one watch forever,
it would be the Panda Daytona. It just covers everything. If I had to let everything else go, that would be the one I kept.
Yeah, that's a good point. So William, who sent me a very nice picture of him and Nicholas together at Chicago Wind-Up. So cheers, William. He said, "Oh God, well, perhaps we'll miss the Shinola bit because I despise Shinola as a brand. No, prove me wrong. And actually, it's with good. I made an entire video on this about why." Shinola watches I'm talking about. Shinola is a brand, they're leather goods and hotels and stuff. Right. Sorry, I should say Shinola. The people will get upset if I say Shinola. They renewed that brand and stuff like that. But the watches originally, I think they're getting there with the watches, to be honest. I think the newer ones are okay, but those first ones that came out, those Runwells that were obviously. They were charging a hell of a lot for what and they built this whole pseudo. They were owned by the guy who set up Fossil Watches, and the conglomerate that set up Shinola wasn't based in Detroit. They think, it saved Detroit, or it saved jobs in Detroit.
It did not.
Yeah, they were owned by a Texas. Conglomerate, and they did do charity work in Detroit, and they employed people from Detroit, so that's very commendable. But the money wasn't staying there, and I think they did a great marketing trick, and they're the only watch company in history to ever be pulled in front of the FTC, because they used to say that they were made in America, and they weren't. They were assembled. They weren't. They didn't make anything there. they just assembled them. So yeah, there's a whole. I've made a video on it. But Monta, has anybody ever?
I have had them, and I highly recommend them. Very nice, great watches, great quality. But I would always buy them on the secondary market. But I could tell you, much like the Marine Master, it's a watch that I've had sold, and that always troubles me. I mean, if that doesn't look like the watch I'm wearing now, what does? So save your pennies and try to, even if you bought it, older, 10 years old. I mean, they are nice, but they're quite a few dollars too.
Yeah, I for some reason I thought they were Australian, but obviously they're St. Louis based. It looks like.
Yeah. No, so I'm Shinola, very US based thing. I think all the feelings about Shinola seem to be US based. So yes. I've got nothing. They're a brand I know exists because other people talk about them. I don't have a thought about them at all. Monta, incredibly well made.
Yes.
Incredibly derivative. I can't think of why I would buy one.
Yeah. It's so true. I almost feel, and again, please, someone's again come to the house and beat my ass, but I almost feel like I'm buying, a high-end replica when I buy, when I had the Monta. I'm like, this is not really. I can't get what I want, so I got this.
Yeah,
and it doesn't stay.
Yeah, I'm not going to tar it with the Steinhardt brush. It is obviously not a knockoff of a Rolex, but it is so close and has so little to say of its own that I just, as I said, it's a really well-made example of something I can't think of why I would buy.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's true.
So, okay, I think we've probably got time for probably two more questions. So the next one is, this is Nathan's just asking the follow-up question here. Next step on the previous question. If you could only have one model from one brand, but in all its different existing colorways, what would you
Well, for us, if you go Rolex, that means you're only going to own one watch.
Well,
ouch.
I might just go a shot in the dark here and say Rolex GMT. Like I just might say Rolex GMT because I think that's the all rounder, isn't it? That's the it's got the GMT function and the different colorways and the gold versions and stuff like that. They do make the watch look visually. You can see why people would have multiple GMT versions because of the
colorways. Agreed. I love the root beer. I mean,
yes,
the rose and stainless. Oh, one of my favorite watches. Every time I take it out, I'm like, oh, why aren't I wearing this? This is a beautiful watch. So,
do you want to have a stab at this? Then Al, is there if you could one model from one brand, but
one model, it'd be hard.
Can I cheat?
Oh well,
Seamaster.
Oh,
okay.
I could see that.
Yeah. That's just an umbrella brand for
exactly.
Right.
I said Ed cheating a little.
Yeah, no Prado, no color, just Seamaster. Okay.
Just Seamaster.
Because you've got the choices, haven't you? You've got the chronographs, you've got
and then one could argue that's not really a model, that's a collection. So if I wanted to go, if I truly did say one model, you know what? I truly don't know. No, I still don't know.
You had something.
I'll stick with Seamaster.
All
right. Al, you didn't know, did you? Or have you got a thought on it? You're not sure on that one?
Again, I would stay with the Panda. I mean, again, timeless.
You've got the gold Daytona. You've got the
Yeah,
absolutely. I went into crazy. I was in Tokyo and I went into this crazy shop, and they wouldn't let me take a photograph, but they had 12 Daytonas that I'd never even seen before. Like,
wow,
they were all real as well, and it was just colorways that I'd never even seen before. So I was like, wow. But okay, so next, so we'll finish off here with Colin, which is saying, what are your thoughts on the Lang 1943 field watch? Let's look.
Let's bring it up.
Not Lange, I don't think it's. Oh, here we go. Lang. Oh, so this is a brand that I am not familiar with at all.
Oh,
so Lang.
Oh, I've never seen this one.
No. So what is? Let's discover. So €3,500. Okay, so movement. So it's a Hanwha mechanical movement. Is it in? Well, it looks like it's in house then, because it's got their name on it.
I'd say it's a. Are these guys German?
Must be.
It's got it.
With Lange, Law Lang. Yeah, interesting.
I mean, it looks very nice. I'd not heard of it before. Yeah, that looks like a fairly. That movement looks like a lot of the. I think they're Unitas-based movements that a lot of the Germans use. They throw a 3/4 plate in there.
Right.
Hand wound.
Small seconds. Yeah.
Small seconds. So I'm guessing it's a Unitas of some sort.
Yeah.
It looks like it's well finished. That ombre dial, you'd really have to see it in real life to know what it looked like.
Yeah. And it's like a vintage and modern, isn't it? It's like the dial itself is vintage, but then you've got what looks like a very modern small seconds.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it just that one watch that they do? I think it's just the one watch. So maybe it's a newer brand then. Interesting. Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, there you go. I don't mind the look of that actually. I mean, it needs the date on it, but.
Right, as Bruno said, it has Longines Spirit vibes to it. Definitely,
Yeah.
I'd rather go with the Longines.
Yeah. So that might be a good alternative to it as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, there's a few there.
This is one of those tricky ones where you'd really have to sit them next to each other. Like I always find Longines, I hate to say this, but I always find Longines just a little disappointing when you hold them compared to what they look like on a screen. And it's like those people who say to me, like, why would you buy an IWC when it's exactly the same watch that Laco makes? And the only person who ever says that is someone who hasn't held them both.
Right, agreed.
But if you just looked at pictures on the net, I can see how you might think that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. There's definitely, you have to, that's the thing with buying things online, isn't it? Some of these watches, especially new ones, you really have to hold them, don't you? And feel them on the wrist, because I remember I bought a Squale once because I loved the look of it and everybody was, raving about them online.
Sure.
And once I got it in hand, it was just like immediately no.
Yeah,
that's probably the benefit that brands that have been around and have got a reputation kind of have, which is after a while you can jump that. If I'm looking at a Rolex or a Breitling or a Tudor, if I've had a couple of these and a new one comes out, I can tell plus or minus 5% how it's going to wear. It's the same as all the others.
It's true. That's a good point.
Whereas if you're a new brand and it's just like, well, I have no idea. I don't know what this is going to be like.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a problem that some of the micro brands have. But yeah, awesome. Well, that was great, guys. Thank you so much for all of the questions. So I'll end the broadcast here, but thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.